Good evening and welcome to another episode of Play Frugal Reviews. And tonight we're going to be covering Plague Inc. Evolved. Now, that name may sound somewhat familiar to a number of you. There has been a game that came out in 2012 called Plague Inc., available on Android and iOS. And basically, the concept is that you have a disease that you're trying to spread across the planet and kill everyone. Kind of morbid, but it's the goal of the game, and it's surprisingly a lot of fun. I've actually been playing the game probably since not long after it came out on Android, and been playing it for years. In fact, every time I get a new phone, one of the first things I put on it is a new copy of Plague Inc. But in 2016, they took that and they ported it to the PS4, the Xbox, and then about 6 months later to the PC. And so that's what we have here is Plague Inc. Evolved. So it's very, very similar to Plague Inc. If you've ever played Plague Inc., you'll be right at home with this game immediately. And as I said, I've got a soft spot for this game because I've been playing it for years. So I want to share it with you tonight, and we can go over it. So we'll just start off with the single-player version. We're going to play the main game. Although, as you can see, there are plenty of other scenarios which you can also play, which offer a little bit of different rules and different scenarios in which to spread your disease. Okay, and we're going to start off with playing. Now, you can see from the list here, you have a variety. You start off with bacteria. Once you've beaten bacteria, you can go to virus, fungus, Murex worm, parasite, prion, necrovirus, nanovirus, bioweapon, simian flu, and shadow plague, which are very unique. The shadow plague, basically, you have vampires, and simian flu, you have kind of a Planet of the Apes kind of thing going on. And so those are definitely very different styles of play than what you're going to start off with here in the beginning, which is bacteria. Now, bacteria is the most, as they say, most common cause of plague, who has unlimited potential. And we'll go ahead and switch over. There's your bacteria, and we'll go ahead and continue. All right, now you have, as you go through the game, you can unlock various genetic settings to start off the game. They're kind of their, say, boosts, if you will. That's probably the best way to say it. The ATP boost, for example, you get bonus DNA at the beginning. And, okay, still the Darwinist here, increasing the chance of your plague mutating. That may or may not be a good thing, so you may not want to do it because one of the big strategies for playing this game is to keep your disease hidden as long as possible, spread to as many people as possible, and then increase its lethality in order to start killing people. Because once you start developing symptoms and people start noticing, then they start working on cures, and then it's a race to kill everyone against the scientists trying to cure your disease. So the chance of your plague mutating and developing symptoms when you don't want them to can be a real headache. On the other hand, it can also give you free symptoms towards the end of the game when you really do want to increase that lethality. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We're going to play without that, just because we want to make sure we stay silent in this for this game. And here's Terracite, and you increase the chance of plague spreading by land, because of course you've got all the continents, and you've got to, even if you infect one country, you've got to get all the way through all the other countries. So obviously this is going to be a good thing, pretty much no matter what version you're playing. Now here we're going to insert the gene, nothing there, but we have a choice between an ionized helix, which is bonus DNA when you devolve. Devolve is when you, for instance, one of those symptoms has mutated and you didn't want it to, so you would take it back. You would devolve it, and then you typically, depending on the scenario, would get some kind of refund DNA points from doing so. Usually, one or two. It's not a big deal. Now here the costs to devolve don't increase. As I said, in some scenarios, you actually have to pay to devolve a symptom. In this case here, they stay the same as you go. And then the other one is symptostasis. Symptom costs don't increase, but it is an easier cure to cure disease. So that can, again, be a good thing, be a bad thing. So, but let's go ahead and click that one, simply because our goal here is not to give them time to cure it. So that will be a good benefit to us, because we can do a whole boatload of symptoms all at once. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started, and you can get an idea of what we're talking about. We'll start with casual, just because this is a playthrough, and we can name your disease anything you want, which gets to be a lot of fun because you can do things like stupidity or vanity or whatever kind of thing that you want. You can name your disease. It'd just be fun because at the end of the game, when it tells you you've eradicated all of humanity, you can get something like vanity, or it has eradicated all humanity, and so you give yourself a little chuckle depending on what you want to put in there. So here's where we are, and this is the main screen. Welcome to Plague Inc. You are a bacteria, and you're going to evolve and spread across the world, wiping out all the humans. So start off with a country, and just to pick one, we've got one here. Let's go with Egypt. It has airport and ports, so you have airplanes coming in, boats leaving, so you have a good way to spread diseases coming from there. So Egypt is always kind of one of my favorite places to start off with. Just click on it, and then you click to go, and we're off and running. Okay, up here in the right hand corner you see speed. You see the speed controls. Start off pausing it just so we can talk a little bit about it without time pressure. And now you see down here in the left hand corner is your DNA, and you get DNA points, and then if you click here you can figure out how to spend them. You can spend them on increasing the ways that your disease can spread, whether it be by air or water, or through blood, or insects, sheep, or livestock, birds, or rats, and each one of those has its own strengths. Obviously, for instance, air will give you a better transmission from planes, water from boats. The livestock will help you spread a disease in rural areas, rats in urban areas, and birds through their migration across the course of an entire continent. And imagine the bugs, the insects, they are going to be better in your hot and tropical climates in order to spread your disease. So those will be some options there. Now, as you go through here, you have symptoms, and you start off with minor ones. For instance, we'll click on this in nausea. You see an irritated stomach line, woozy discomfort, slight chance of infection while kissing, only 2 DNA points. And then from nausea, you can go to projectile vomiting and all sorts of really nasty, gross things. Until here at the center, you get things like brain death, and seizures, and all sorts of things that obviously are increasing lethality as you go down towards the center, no matter where you're starting. Here, insomnia, cysts, anemia, rash, or coughing are all your initial starting points. Now, our goal here to begin with is to have no symptoms at all. So we're going to ignore that page for just now. And here's a very important page. Now, this is going to be the survival of your bacteria. In this case, this is cold. This is heat, so it's going to do better in cold environments if you give it a little protection. In hot environments here. Now, here's medicine. So, for example, in wealthy countries, as you would expect, they have better healthcare systems, so they're better able to fight off pandemics. So you want to have something that's resistant to medication. And throughout this chain, you can do things to try to slow down the cure research. You can reshuffle the DNA of your bacteria to make it more difficult to find a cure. So that ends up being a very important piece right here. And then here is where you'll find, typically, depending on which disease type you choose, your special properties. In this case here, you have bacterial resilience. You're going to create a bacterial shell to protect against all climates. And I like to start off with those special abilities in most cases, simply because that's what makes your disease thrive. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, now as you can see, now we've picked one, and we've spent 6 DNA, and so we have 3 left. But now we've opened up the second, bacterial resistance 2, which gives you increased survivability. And that's the kind of the way it works. You pick the first one, and then it opens up future possibilities. For instance, cold resistance 1, cold resistance 2, etc., etc. So we'll just start off with that. We've got 3 DNA left to get started, and we're going to start next with doing some transmissions, and we want to get to 9 DNA points to see if we can start spreading, since this does best in arid environments, which of course Egypt is typically. So we're going to wait for 9 DNA points. And how do you get them, you ask? Well, they start here, and these red bubbles pop up, and anytime you infect a new country, you get a new bubble. And when you click on it, as we do here, obviously now we were too late, but you would get some DNA points, which would go down here and it would help you to spread your disease and evolve it. Now we're going to start off, and I'm going to fast forward here, because the game can take a while if you run it on regular speed all the time, but you find most of the time you can spread, you run it on a higher speed and get through the pain much more quickly. So here we go, and we're now up to 8 DNA. So you're getting DNA not just from the red bubbles, but also just the number of people you infect increases it. So you can see we can't quite afford the area yet, but let's give it a minute and we'll be able to. There we go, and now we've got 10 DNA, and we'll flip over here, and now we're going to start spreading our disease a little more quickly. And the next one we're going to do is water, because now this is going to help us airplanes. Let's see if we can get some on boats as well. And off we go again. Actually, it's got kind of a spooky background music, which I think really fits the mood of the game, and I really kind of enjoy that. All right, so we've got some more DNA we need to get. 10. Now, on each screen, transmission, symptoms, abilities, whenever you pick one, the cost of all the other ones you haven't yet picked increases, usually by 1 point. So whatever you pick first, it's going to make the next one that much more expensive. So you do also want to be careful when you're looking at, for instance, your transmissions. You know, do I want to do air first or water first? Because that's going to make spreading it by bird migration even more expensive. It's a lot of strategic choices that you make through the game, because the DNA points can be very scarce and hard to come by. So we'll go on. We need a few more points, and we've got 10 now. And now we've got enough to evolve transmission by water. Now, I like to go 2, but again, your strategies are going to change, and mine isn't necessarily more valid than anybody else's, but I do find that this works pretty well for me. Now that one's because it's my 3rd one, and it's a 2nd level. It's going to cost me 16 points, so it's going to be a little pricier. See, now we've spread to a new country, so we're going to click on OK, and boom, pop that up. And then there was an orange DNA helix which popped up that gives us more points, so we're up to 5 points again. And we're going to keep going. Okay, and we're moving along. We're back up to 11, 15, and 22 already. Okay, so now we're going to go here. All right. Now, you see out on here where it says, I just picked this one up, but it says here, refund 2 DNA points if you devolve it. So, if for whatever reason I decided I didn't need that later on in the game, I can click on devolve, get 2 DNA points back to spend on something else. So that is a good strategy to keep in mind as you go through as well. Now here, we've got water 2. This was going to take 18 DNA points. So that's going to be even more expensive. Let's click this bubble and get going. Alright, now you're going to find yourself using pause a lot because these bubbles can come up rather quickly. And if you just pause it, as soon as you see one, I'll give you an extra couple seconds to get that popped. So we're already up to 14 DNA points. And alright. There's your double eggs. Now you see this here, this is a boat, and it is infected. It is red. Therefore, wherever this boat lands, the infection will spread to that country. So let's watch where this boat goes and go from there. Alright, went down to South Africa, which is already infected. So it doesn't actually hurt anything. as far as the wider world is concerned. But you can see, looking at South Africa's stats, 24 people have been infected thus far, and 0 have died. There is a port, there is an airport, and the land crossings are open. Obviously, if you want to spread a disease, having these 3 venues available are important. But as the game progresses and they start to realize that the disease, they will start shutting down ports, airports, land borders, which can be especially problematic if you're trying to get to Greenland or Iceland or Madagascar, New Guinea, New Zealand, Philippines. Those I find are the toughest to get to because all they have access to is a port. So if they start shutting ports down, you're out of luck. So we'll keep on going. We're trying to get to 18 here, see if we can do that. And there we go, that's going to give us 18. So let's go right here, and now let's spread more. Now, this is usually enough for me in the transmission area, so let's flip over here to the abilities. Now, we want to make sure that we're getting to the wealthy countries, but also in the colder climes. When you start off your disease in one type of climate, whether it be hot or cold, your disease is going to automatically do well in that. But in the opposite one, they'll need protection. So we started off in Egypt, which is hot. So you're going to want to add cold resistance so that it can infect areas like Greenland, Canada, Iceland, Scandinavia, etc. So our next one, we're going to go ahead and do our bacterial resistance, 8 DNA points to further increase survivability in all climates. And we only need 8, so this should go hopefully pretty quickly. We got 7 already. Alright, and we got 9, a little more than we needed. Alright, so we'll go ahead and evolve that. And now our next point is 11 DNA to get, this is the third and final increase in that. So let's go ahead and get that though. And 11 points of this. Oops, look at that. They're spreading quickly now. Oh, we've already got Iceland and Madagascar, 2 kind of big milestones. So I think that's a big deal. And we're out in New Zealand. All over the world here. Australia, China, and we've got our 11 points, increasing our survivability. Now the next thing we want to do is tackle the cold and the first world countries. So we've got 14 points there, 10 points there. Now, as I said, as soon as I pick one, the cost of the other one is going to increase. So do we choose the cold or the wealthy? Let's go with the cold first. Southeast Asia, Northern Africa, Germany. See, now we've just hit our first world country, so the medicines in Germany are going to slow the spread of the disease until we get it some assistance in terms of the DNA we're getting. So 14, and I said we were going to get cold first, so let me do that. And I find if I start in a warm area, I need 2 colds eventually, but let's go to the wealthy nations first, medication, and get to our 15. And off we go. 7 already. And then we just hit the Philippines, so again, another good milestone for us. Now we're up to 18 points already, so off we go. Here's 15 now. We want to go back for that second cold, but before we do that, I want to mention, so here, this is where I was talking about the genetic hardening, where it becomes harder to analyze in the lab and decreases future research speed in finding a cure. So that will come in handy later on if we do get found out and they do start working on a cure. You're going to want to immediately slow down that research to give yourself more time. In this case right now, we need 17 points to get that second cold. So let's go ahead and let that run until we get our 17. Okay, we're up to Norway. Right. South America, ooh, all the way across South America, Central America. 23, so that easily put us over the top. Now, what we've got now is left symptoms, and I don't want to involve any of these yet, because if you look at our stats, the stat out here, approximately 2 billion people have been infected. There are, in this game, 7.124 billion people on the planet. So this red gives us an idea of how much of the planet's infected. The blue is the healthy. So, and you can see here, if you go further, it tells you which countries are not yet infected and which ones have at least some level of infection. So what we're going to do is now we're just going to let this run until we get everybody infected. Then we'll start kicking into the symptoms. So what we'll do is we'll kick this into triple speed, make it go even faster. Oh, see now what we've got here? The coughing symptom is mutated. We don't want that. So we want to immediately go here, evolve it, get our 2 free points. We want to go about our merry way. We don't want anyone to be the wiser for us being here. You see, we're starting to accumulate DNA points. We're going to need them and hit them all at once with a bunch of symptoms. Oh, and we've gotten the green one. So I think we've got all of our far points hit, so now it's just a matter of time and hoping that we can hang on until they notice us. We've got 2 more. 74 DNA points, really rocking. But you can see the disease starting to spread across the globe pretty quickly, especially here on triple speed. Okay, we're up to 89, and we're to the top 100. Okay, so now it needs to evolve to kill. You see, we're almost at the very end. We've got 709, so we've got about 30 million people left to infect, and then we'll be ready to start killing people. Okay, so we've developed that. Let's go ahead and evolve that for now, because we're still not quite there. Almost there. And there it is. There are no healthy people left in the world. The last person on the planet recently became infected with vanity. Alright, so this is where it kind of gets a little bit of fun. It's developed the nausea system. Now at this point, we're going to let them go, symptom-wise. Oh, pause, there we go. And we're going to start. So we'll start as just from here. I'm going to go right for the center. As you can see this. Coma. Neuropathic effects in the brainstem cause loss of consciousness and sometimes death, significantly harder to cure. So go ahead and take that one. And here we have total organ failure. Obviously, that's not going to be healthy. So we take that, and now we start branching out. As you can see, as we're going down here, the disease is being measured in terms of its infectivity, its overall severity, and its lethality. And as you highlight each option, it changes. So you can see what effect each symptom is going to have. So if we choose systemic infection, our lethality is going to increase by a good chunk, as will infectivity and overall severity. So yeah, we'd like to do some of that. Now let's look at some of these other ones. We've got some lethality, some infectivity. We don't really care about infectivity at this point because we've already got everybody. Speaking of which, we can go back to all these transmission things and we can devolve them because they're all sick, and so there's no transmission left that's needed. So we're going to get a bunch of DNA points back. Alright, so now we're back up to 75, and let's see what else we can do here. Alright, 6 DNA points, pulmonary fibrosis, that seems pretty good, but we're going to move over this way and down to skin lesions, necrosis. Necrosis is always fun. And then here's the hemorrhagic shock. Is another one that'll kill quickly, and that's going to require 23, but we've only got 19. But we'll start to get DNA as people start to die, and it'll start to rack up pretty quickly. So we can just get some more symptoms on the fly as we go. Here we go. There's more. So now you'll see this red for everybody infected is starting to turn black. Those are for dead. So obviously we're trying to get this number to 0 and this number up to the 7.1 billion number. Okay, we're all the way up to we're up to 27 now, DNA. And let's go ahead and seizures. There you go. Something that's not fun. Insanity. We're going to internal hemorrhaging. There you go, 12 points. So let's wait till we rack up another 12 points and go for there. And we've got 14, 35. Look at that. 12. And there's 18. And our next one, let's pick that Nexus 11 points, tumors. It's always pleasant to see. Now, Australia is starting to work on the cure. They have 8% of the cure, but we've killed almost half the planet already, so they're not going to make it. So we don't have to worry about slowing down the research because they just don't have enough people, enough time left. And off we go again. So now everybody's trying to get in on the cure, but you can look, we're almost full. They've almost killed the whole planet already. And yeah, the exponential decrease. And as we go, we are almost victorious here. And there you go. Vanity has destroyed the world, despite the world's best efforts. The last few humans know they are watching the end of history. And that is, my friends, how you play Plague. They give you a little stat screen, and then you get a score on your game to see how you're doing. But that's it in a nutshell. Now, you want to get to the bottom line is what's my rating on this? I'm going to give it the coveted 10 out of 10. Like I said, this is a game that I've played for 6 years that on Android, and which I managed to pick up through a bundle from Humble, and the net cost for this particular game was right around $1. So you're talking about a game that you can play for 6 years, and now, I said, moving on into 2019, now moving into the Evolved version for $1. I don't think they get any better than that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the evening, and thank you again for listening. If you liked the review, if it helped you decide whether or not to get Plague Inc. Evolved, please like and subscribe, and we will see you next episode of Play Frugal Reviews.